The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of First City Bank, casting long rectangles of light across the marble floor. It was Friday, payday for many, and the bank buzzed with the usual end-of-week energy. Customers stood in snaking lines, some checking phones, others staring at the electronic board that flashed numbers indicating whose turn was next. Among them stood Lucy, a 32-year-old woman with Down syndrome, clutching a blue folder to her chest. Today marked an important milestone in her journey toward independence. For the past year, she had been working part-time at a local bakery, carefully saving her earnings. Now, with enough money saved, she was ready to open her very first bank account by herself. "Number 47, announced the electronic voice over the speaker system. Lucy glanced down at the small paper ticket in her hand. 53, not much longer now. Her heartbeat quickened as she rehearsed the words she had practiced all morning in front of her bathroom mirror. "I would like to open a savings account," she whispered to herself, fingers nervously tracing the edges of her folder. Inside, she had organized everything perfectly: her ID, social security card, proof of address, and the cash she'd saved, all arranged in the order the bank's website had suggested. Across the lobby, a man in a worn baseball cap and dark sunglasses entered through the revolving door. He moved with a quiet grace that seemed at odds with his casual attire: faded jeans, boots, and a simple black jacket. Most people were too absorbed in their phones to notice him, but an observant security guard did a double-take before returning to his post with a slight smile. The man, none other than Keanu Reeves, took a ticket from the dispenser and found a spot to stand near the wall. Unlike many celebrities who might send assistants to handle mundane tasks, Keanu preferred doing normal things himself. It kept him grounded, connected to everyday life in ways that Hollywood often couldn't. Today, he simply needed to deposit some checks and update information on an account he maintained for charitable donations. Lucy didn't notice the famous actor several feet away. Her attention was focused entirely on staying calm, on remembering all the steps her support worker had helped her practice. This bank visit represented more than just opening an account. It was proof that she could handle her own finances, make her own decisions. "Number 50, called the electronic voice. Lucy's stomach fluttered with nervous excitement. Just 3 more to go. She opened her folder one more time, double-checking that everything was in place. The bank seemed to grow louder around her. The clacking of keyboards, the murmur of conversations, the occasional burst of laughter from one of the loan officer's desks in the corner. An elderly woman finished her transaction and walked past Lucy with a kind smile. "Good luck, dear," she said, noticing Lucy's nervous fidgeting with her folder. Lucy beamed back. "Thank you. I'm opening my first account today." "Good for you," the woman replied before heading toward the exit. These small exchanges meant everything to Lucy. Throughout her life, people had often talked around her, about her, but not to her. Each person who treated her like anyone else built up her confidence bit by bit. "Number 53, the system finally announced. Lucy took a deep breath and walked toward teller window number 4, where a thin woman with rectangular glasses and a tight ponytail waited. The nameplate on the counter read, Patricia Wilson. "Next customer." "Please," Patricia called, even though Lucy was already approaching. Keanu, who had been scrolling through messages about an upcoming film project, glanced up at the sound of the announcement. His ticket read 56. He slipped his phone into his pocket and leaned against the wall, content to wait his turn. Lucy placed her folder on the counter, carefully opening it to reveal her neatly arranged documents. "Good afternoon," she said, just as she had practiced. Her words came out more slowly than most people's, with a slight difficulty pronouncing certain sounds, but they were clear and purposeful. "I would like to open a savings account, please," she continued, proud that she had remembered her script perfectly. Patricia the teller looked up, her eyes quickly taking in Lucy's features: the slightly flattened facial profile, the almond-shaped eyes that were characteristic of Down syndrome. Something in her expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "Do you have someone with you today?" Patricia asked, her voice suddenly louder and slower, as though Lucy might not understand normal speech. Lucy's smile faltered slightly. "No, I came by myself. I have all my documents here." She pushed her ID and social security card forward. along with the bank's new account application form she had filled out at home. Patricia glanced at the papers, then looked around the bank lobby as if searching for someone who might be accompanying Lucy. "These forms are quite complicated. Perhaps you'd like to come back with a family member who could help you?" The suggestion hit Lucy like a splash of cold water. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, studying the forms, practicing with her support worker until she understood every line and requirement. She had taken the bus across town by herself, navigated to the bank, and waited patiently for her turn. Yet in less than a minute, this woman had decided she couldn't possibly handle opening an account on her own. "I don't need help," Lucy said, her voice quieter now, the confidence beginning to drain from her. "I filled out all the forms already." From his spot against the wall, Keanu noticed the interaction. He couldn't hear every word, but he recognized the teller's body language, the slight leaning back, the performative slowness of her speech, the way she looked everywhere except directly at the customer before her. He had witnessed similar scenes before, people being treated differently because they didn't fit someone's idea of normal. Something in his chest tightened. At the counter, Patricia was examining Lucy's application with exaggerated care. "Well, there seem to be some issues here. This section about employment isn't complete, and we'll need additional verification for your address." Lucy frowned, confused. She'd been so careful to fill in every line according to the instructions. "Which part is wrong?" she asked, leaning forward to see. As she moved, her elbow caught the edge of the folder, sending several of her carefully arranged papers sliding across the counter. A few fluttered to the floor. "Oh dear," Patricia said, making no move to help retrieve the fallen documents. Her voice carried through the now quieter bank lobby. "Perhaps this is too complicated for today." Lucy felt her cheeks burn as she realized other customers were watching. 2 other tellers had paused their work to observe the scene. A manager standing near the loan desks was frowning in their direction. The pride she had felt walking into the bank evaporated, replaced by a familiar shame that she had tried so hard to overcome throughout her life. As she bent down to gather her fallen papers, she felt tears threatening. She had wanted so badly to do this one thing independently, to prove to herself and others that she could manage her own money. Now, as papers scattered around her feet and curious eyes watched her struggle, she wondered if everyone else had been right all along. Maybe she did need someone to do these things for her. "These tasks can be challenging for anyone," Patricia was saying in that same loud, slow voice that drew even more attention to the situation. "It's perfectly fine to need assistance. It wasn't fine. Not to Lucy." This moment represented everything she had been working toward. Her own money and her own account that she had opened herself. As she knelt on the cold marble floor, trying to gather her documents with trembling hands, the bank seemed to fall into an uncomfortable silence. Keanu, watching the scene unfold, felt a familiar pull in his chest, the simple human instinct to help someone in distress. He had never sought attention for acts of kindness. In fact, he preferred to stay under the radar. But some situations simply called for action, regardless of who might be watching. Without hesitation, he stepped away from the wall and moved toward the counter where Lucy knelt, gathering her scattered papers with shaking hands, trying to blink back tears of frustration and embarrassment. The bank lobby had grown strangely quiet, with only the soft hum of computers and distant phone rings breaking the silence. Everyone seemed frozen, watching but not helping, witnesses to a small moment of everyday cruelty that happened all too often. What nobody realized yet was that this ordinary Friday afternoon was about to become extraordinary, a day that would change not just Lucy's experience at the bank, but the way an entire staff thought about their interactions with all customers. And it would start with a simple act of kindness from the last person anyone expected to see in a downtown bank branch on a regular Friday afternoon. Keanu moved through the bank's lobby with quiet purpose, weaving between the roped-off waiting lanes. A few heads turned, sensing something different about the man in the baseball cap and sunglasses, but he kept his eyes fixed on Lucy, who was still struggling to gather her scattered papers from the floor. "Excuse me," he said softly as he approached. Without making a show of it, he knelt down beside her. "Let me help you with those." Lucy looked up, surprised by the gentle voice. Through tear-blurred vision, she didn't immediately recognize who was helping her. She only saw kindness in the stranger's face, something she hadn't seen from the bank teller. "Thank you," she whispered, embarrassment still coloring her cheeks. Keanu picked up several papers that had slid under the rope barrier. "I think these might be organized by date," he said, noticing the careful system Lucy had used. He began arranging them back in order, treating each document with care and respect. It was this simple act, a famous actor on his knees on a bank floor, helping reorganize papers, that caused the first ripple of recognition through the bank. A young man waiting in line gasped audibly. A loan officer froze mid-sentence while speaking to a client. The security guard by the door straightened, eyes widening beneath his cap. Patricia, the teller, remained behind her counter, her expression shifting from impatience to confusion as she realized who was kneeling on the floor of her bank. Her colleague at the next window mouthed silently, "Is that—" Lucy, still focused on gathering her papers, remained unaware of the changing atmosphere around her. To her, the kind man was simply a fellow customer who'd stopped to help when no one else would. "I've been wanting to open this account for a long time," Lucy explained quietly as they collected the last of the papers. "I saved up all by myself." "That's really impressive," Keanu replied, his voice genuine and warm. "The first account is always special." As they stood, Lucy finally got a clearer look at the man's face as his sunglasses shifted slightly. Her eyes widened with a flicker of recognition. But before she could say anything, Keanu gave her a small, conspiratorial smile and a barely perceptible shake of his head. Understanding passed between them, an unspoken agreement that this moment wasn't about his fame, but about her dignity. Lucy nodded slightly and turned back to face the counter, standing taller now, her folder once again neatly organized in her hands. Patricia, the teller, had transformed entirely. Gone was the condescending tone and impatient demeanor. Now she stood perfectly still, her face a mixture of shock and sudden professionalism. "We were just about to continue with the account opening process," Patricia said, her voice now notably different, respectful, normal-paced. "Great," Keanu said, stepping up beside Lucy at the counter. "Would you like some company while you finish up?" he asked Lucy. Sometimes these forms can be tricky for anyone. The word anyone hung in the air between them, a gentle but clear correction to the teller's earlier implication. Lucy nodded gratefully. "Yes, please, if you don't mind." "Not at all," Keanu said, standing beside her rather than taking over. His presence was supportive without being intrusive, making it clear that this was still Lucy's transaction. By now, whispers had spread throughout the bank. "It's Keanu Reeves," murmured a woman in line to her husband. "The Matrix guy," explained an older customer to a teenager who looked confused by the sudden excitement. The branch manager, a balding man with a navy tie slightly loosened at his collar, emerged from his office, alerted by the unusual energy in his normally subdued bank. He paused, taking in the scene, his teller suddenly flustered, a famous actor standing at the counter, and a customer with Down syndrome who seemed caught between embarrassment and renewed determination. Lucy placed her folder back on the counter and reopened it, this time with steady hands. "As I was saying," she continued with newfound confidence, "I'd like to open a savings account. I have all my identification and my initial deposit right here." Patricia nodded quickly. "Of course. Let me just—" She began typing rapidly on her keyboard, all traces of her earlier hesitation gone. "I'll need your ID and social security card." Lucy handed them over, careful not to drop anything this time. Keanu remained beside her, his presence like a protective shield against the stares and whispers that continued around them. "You know," Keanu said conversationally to Lucy, but loud enough for those nearby to hear, "I remember opening my first bank account. I was so nervous I forgot my own address when they asked me." Lucy laughed softly. "Really?" "Absolutely. Stood there stammering until the teller finally took pity on me and suggested I look at my ID for the answer." He shook his head with a self-deprecating smile. "Some things are nerve-wracking for everyone the first time." The message wasn't subtle, but it was delivered without accusation or anger. Around them, several bank employees shifted uncomfortably, the gentle reminder hitting home. The branch manager approached, adjusting his tie. "Good afternoon," he said, eyes darting between Lucy, Keanu, and his now extremely efficient teller. "Is everything going smoothly with your transaction today?" The question seemed directed at both of them, but Keanu stepped back slightly, allowing Lucy to answer for herself. It is now, she said simply. The manager nodded, understanding the implication. I'm glad to hear that. I'm Tom, the branch manager. If there's anything you need, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you, Lucy replied, turning back to Patricia, who was now carefully processing her application. I just need to verify a few details, Patricia said, her voice now professional and direct, the same tone she would use with any customer. Your current address is still the one listed on your ID? Yes, Lucy answered, pointing to the form. I wrote it here too. Perfect, Patricia nodded. And for your employment information, it says here you work at Sunrise Bakery. For 1 year now, Lucy confirmed proudly. I'm a kitchen assistant. I work Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Sunrise Bakery, Keanu repeated thoughtfully. On Maple Street. I think I've been there. They make those amazing sourdough loaves, right? Lucy's face lit up. Yes. I help prepare the dough sometimes. My boss says I'm very good at measuring the ingredients exactly right. That's a real skill, Keanu said. Baking is all about precision. As they chatted, Patricia continued processing the application, now treating it with the same care she would give to any important customer. The difference in her behavior was striking, a transformation that hadn't gone unnoticed by other customers or staff. The manager hovered nearby, clearly uncertain how to handle this unexpected situation, a celebrity in his branch, witnessing what could only be described as poor customer service, followed by a dramatic improvement once the celebrity intervened. We have a few account options that might suit your needs, Patricia explained, her computer screen showing different savings plans. This one has no monthly fee if you maintain a minimum balance of $300, while this one offers slightly higher interest but requires a $500 minimum. Lucy leaned forward, studying the options carefully. I have 720s to deposit today. Which one would grow my money better? Patricia began explaining the details of each account option, no longer speaking slowly or loudly, but addressing Lucy as a capable adult making a financial decision. Nearby customers who had been watching the scene unfold began returning to their own transactions, though many still glanced over occasionally, drawn as much by Keanu's presence as by the unusual situation. At the next window, another teller helped an elderly man who had been watching the entire scene. That's something, isn't it? The old man commented, nodding toward Keanu and Lucy. It sure is, replied the teller, lowering her voice. Never thought I'd see John Wick helping someone open a checking account. Not just that, the elderly man corrected her gently. Never thought I'd see someone stand up like that without making a scene. No yelling, no accusation, just quiet dignity. We could use more of that these days. Back at Patricia's window, Lucy was signing the account opening documents, her signature careful and deliberate. The tension that had filled the bank lobby earlier had dissipated, replaced by a different kind of energy, something like collective self-reflection. And with that signature, your account is officially open, Patricia announced, her professional smile now reaching her eyes. Your starter checks and debit card will arrive in about 7 business days. Would you like a temporary card today so you can access your account immediately? Yes, please. Lucy nodded, tucking her receipt carefully into her folder. I'll get that prepared right away, Patricia said, typing a few more commands into her computer. And would you like to set up online banking access so you can monitor your account from home? Lucy hesitated, then looked at Keanu, who had remained quietly supportive throughout the process. I'm not very good with computers yet. Maybe next time. That's perfectly fine, Patricia assured her. You can always come back and set that up whenever you're ready. As Patricia finished processing the temporary card, the branch manager approached again, this time carrying what appeared to be a small welcome gift, a bank-branded water bottle and pen set. We'd like to thank you for choosing First City Bank for your financial needs, he said, placing the items on the counter. His eyes shifted between Lucy and Keanu, clearly uncertain which of them he was more nervous about addressing directly. Lucy accepted the gifts with a smile. Thank you. I'll use these. What had begun as a humiliating experience had transformed into something empowering. Around them, the bank continued its Friday afternoon business. But something had shifted in the atmosphere. A small lesson had been taught and, perhaps learned. As Patricia handed over the temporary debit card, Lucy turned to Keanu, her eyes shining with gratitude and something else, the quiet dignity of someone who had stood her ground and succeeded. "Thank you for helping me," she said simply. "You didn't need my help," Keanu replied softly. "You came prepared and knew exactly what you wanted. Sometimes people just need a reminder to see that." The words hung in the air, meant for more ears than just Lucy's. Across the bank lobby, several staff members paused, the gentle rebuke landing precisely where it needed to. With her new account successfully opened and her temporary debit card tucked safely in her wallet, Lucy gathered her belongings, ready to leave the bank with a sense of accomplishment that had almost been denied to her. The folder that had been scattered across the floor was now neatly reorganized, a small victory in itself. "Do you need anything else today?" Patricia asked, her tone now genuinely helpful rather than condescending. "No, thank you," Lucy replied, zipping her folder into her backpack. She turned to Keanu, who still stood beside her. "What about you? Don't you have banking to do?" Keanu smiled at her thoughtfulness. "I do, but it can wait a few more minutes. Would you mind if I walked you out?" The simple offer touched Lucy deeply. Throughout her life, so many people had either rushed her along or taken over completely, rarely taking the time to simply walk beside her at her own pace. "I'd like that," she said with a smile. As they stepped away from the counter, Patricia called out, "Thank you for choosing First City Bank. Ms. Chen, please let us know if you have any questions about your new account." Lucy nodded, noting how the teller now used her name, something she hadn't bothered to do earlier despite having seen her ID. It was a small detail that spoke volumes. The bank manager, still hovering nearby, stepped forward. "Allow me to walk you out as well," he offered, clearly trying to salvage the situation and perhaps get a moment with the unexpected celebrity in his branch. "That's kind of you," Keanu replied diplomatically, "but I think we're fine, though I would like one of your business cards before I leave if you don't mind." The manager fumbled in his pocket, producing a card so quickly it seemed he'd been waiting for just such a request. "Of course, Mr. Reeves, anything at all." Keanu accepted the card with a nod, tucking it into his jacket pocket without looking at it. The subtle message wasn't lost on the manager. This wasn't about getting special treatment for himself. As they walked toward the exit, other customers and staff watched discreetly. The security guard by the door stood a little straighter, holding the door open for them as they approached. "Congratulations on your new account," the guard said to Lucy with a genuine smile. "Thank you," Lucy replied, her earlier distress now replaced with pride. Outside, the afternoon sun was beginning to soften as it dipped toward the western horizon, casting a golden glow over the street. The bank steps descended to the busy sidewalk where people rushed past, unaware of the small drama that had played out inside. Lucy paused at the top of the steps, turning to Keanu. "I know who you are," she said quietly. "My brother loves your movies. He has all the John Wick posters in his room." Keanu's eyes crinkled with his smile. "Does he? That's very cool." "Yes. He says you do your own stunts and you're the nicest actor in Hollywood." Lucy looked down at her new debit card, still visible in her hand. "Now I know he's right." "That's very kind of him to say," Keanu replied, touched by the simple assessment. "But today wasn't about me. You did all the hard work in there. You were prepared, you knew what you wanted, and you didn't give up." Lucy considered this. "But they only helped me because of you. Because you're famous." The observation hung between them, honest, perceptive, and cutting in its truth. Keanu didn't try to deny it. "Sometimes people need a reminder to do the right thing," he said after a moment. "But that doesn't change the fact that you deserve their respect from the beginning, famous person or not." A city bus slowed to a stop at the corner, and Lucy glanced at it. "That's my bus. I need to go. Do you need help getting to the stop?" Keanu asked, not assuming she did, but offering just as he would to anyone. "No, thank you. I take the bus by myself all the time," Lucy said with quiet confidence. "It's part of being independent." Keanu nodded, respecting her capability. "It was really nice to meet you, Lucy." "It was nice to meet you too," she replied, then added with a small smile. "I can't wait to tell my brother. He'll never believe me." "Here," Keanu said, taking out a small notepad and pen from his pocket. He quickly wrote something and handed it to her. "This might help." Lucy looked down at the note. In neat handwriting it read, "Dear Lucy's brother, your sister is amazing and very brave. Thanks for being a fan. Keanu Reeves. Lucy's eyes widened. He's going to freak out. Thank you. You're welcome, Keanu said. Good luck with your new account. With a final wave, Lucy carefully tucked the note into her wallet beside her new debit card and made her way down the steps, navigating through the crowd toward the bus stop with confidence. Keanu watched until she boarded safely, raising his hand in a small farewell when she found a seat by the window, and waved enthusiastically at him as the bus pulled away. Only then did he turn back toward the bank, his expression shifting from warmth to something more thoughtful. The business card the manager had given him felt heavy in his pocket. There was one more thing he needed to do before handling his own banking. Inside, the bank had returned mostly to normal operations, though there was still an undercurrent of excitement among both customers and staff. When Keanu re-entered, all eyes turned to him once again. But this time he walked directly to the manager's office at the rear of the building. The manager, who had been speaking with another employee, looked up in surprise when Keanu appeared in his doorway. "Mr. Reeves, please come in. How can I help you?" He gestured toward a chair across from his desk. Keanu took the seat, removing his sunglasses now that the pretense of anonymity was long gone. "I'd like to talk with you about what happened earlier," he said, his voice quiet but firm. The manager's expression shifted nervously. "Of course, and let me assure you, that sort of treatment is not what we aim for at First City Bank. I've already spoken with Patricia about her approach." "I'm glad to hear that," Keanu said. "But I'm not here to get anyone in trouble. I'm more interested in the bigger picture." "The bigger picture?" The manager leaned forward, uncertain. "How does your bank train staff to work with all kinds of customers? People with disabilities, elderly people? Those who might speak English as a second language or have trouble with complicated forms?" The question caught the manager off guard. He had clearly been prepared for a complaint, perhaps even worried about negative publicity from a celebrity. Instead, he was facing a thoughtful inquiry about the bank's policies. "Well," he began, shifting in his seat, "we do have standard customer service training, of course. There's a module on accessibility in the orientation package." Keanu listened attentively as the manager fumbled through a vague explanation that revealed more gaps than substance. It became clear that whatever training existed was cursory at best, a box to be checked rather than a meaningful preparation for inclusive customer service. "I see," Keanu said when the manager finally trailed off. "So there's room for improvement." It wasn't a question. The manager dabbed at his forehead with a handkerchief. "Yes, I suppose there is. We're always looking to improve our customer experience." "What I witnessed today wasn't just poor customer service," Keanu said, his voice still calm but carrying a weight that made the manager sit up straighter. "It was a person being denied their dignity. And that matters more than any transaction." The manager nodded quickly. "I completely agree. It was unacceptable. The thing is," Keanu continued, "I don't think it was just one teller having a bad day. This kind of thing happens everywhere, every day to people who don't have someone to step in and help them." Outside the office, bank operations continued. Through the glass walls, Keanu could see Patricia at her window, helping another customer. He wondered if her newly discovered professionalism would last beyond this unusual day. "What would you suggest?" the manager asked, seeming genuinely interested now rather than simply defensive. Keanu considered the question. "I'm not an expert, but there are people who are, organizations that specialize in training businesses to be truly inclusive, not just technically accessible." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, quickly searching for something. After a moment, he showed the screen to the manager. "This is a non-profit that works specifically with businesses on meaningful inclusion training. Real scenarios, not just rules and regulations. They're actually located right here in the city." The manager took the phone, studying the website displayed there. I wasn't aware of this resource." "Now you are," Keanu said simply, taking back his phone. "And I think your customers, all of them, would benefit if your staff had better tools to serve them properly." There was no threat in his words, no implication of consequences if the manager didn't follow through. Instead, there was something more powerful, the gentle but firm expectation that now that he knew better, he would do better. The manager straightened his tie, making a decision. "I'll contact them today. This is something we need to address." "I think that's a great idea," Keanu said, rising from his seat. And by the way, I'd still like to make that deposit I came in for, if that's possible. Of course. The manager stood quickly. I'd be happy to handle that personally, Mr. Reeves. Keanu smiled slightly. That's not necessary. I'm happy to wait in line like everyone else. I still have my number. He pulled out the small ticket with number 56 printed on it. The manager looked almost disappointed but nodded in understanding. Of course. Whatever you prefer. As Keanu turned to leave the office, the manager called after him. Mr. Reeves, thank you. Not just for bringing this to my attention, but for how you handled it. You could have made a scene, posted on social media, made us look terrible. Instead, you just helped. Keanu paused in the doorway. Making a scene rarely changes minds, and that young woman didn't need more attention drawn to her difficult moment. She just needed to be seen as a person. With that, he walked back into the lobby and took a seat in the waiting area, placing his ticket on his knee, content to wait his turn just as he'd planned to do when he first walked into the bank that afternoon, before an unexpected encounter had turned an ordinary errand into something much more meaningful. The next morning dawned bright and clear, sunshine spilling through the curtains of Lucy's small but tidy apartment. She woke early, excitement still bubbling from the previous day's events. The first thing she did was check her bedside table where she had carefully placed her new temporary debit card and, even more precious, the handwritten note from Keanu Reeves. Both were exactly where she had left them. She picked up the note, reading it again with a smile. Her brother Andy would be visiting for lunch today, and she couldn't wait to show him. Lucy's apartment was part of a supportive living community, where adults with various disabilities lived independently, but with assistance available when needed. Her unit was decorated with photos of family, colorful artwork she had created herself, and a shelf full of cookbooks, her passion outside of her bakery job. As she made her morning coffee, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from her support coordinator, Diane. How did the bank visit go yesterday? Lucy smiled, typing back slowly but accurately. Really good. I got my account. Something amazing happened. I'll tell you next week. Diane responded with a thumbs-up emoji and a great job message. Lucy sipped her coffee, gazing out the window at the busy street below. Yesterday's encounter had left her thinking deeply about how people saw her and treated her. For most of her life, she had accepted the slower speech, the simplified explanations, the assumption that she couldn't handle things on her own. Yesterday had shown her it didn't have to be that way. Later that morning, across town at First City Bank, Tom, the manager, arrived earlier than usual. The events of the previous day had kept him awake much of the night, his mind replaying the scene of Lucy at the counter, the papers scattered across the floor, and most of all, the calm but penetrating words Keanu Reeves had spoken in his office. As he unlocked the main doors, he noticed Patricia was also early, already at her station preparing for the day. Good morning, he greeted, surprised to see her there before required. Morning, she replied, looking up from her computer. There was a moment of awkward silence between them, the unspoken events of yesterday hanging in the air. Do you have a few minutes before we open? Tom asked. I'd like to have a quick meeting with all the tellers and customer service reps. Patricia nodded, a flicker of apprehension crossing her face. Is this about yesterday? Tom took a deep breath. Yes, but not in the way you might think. It's not about placing blame. It's about doing better. By the time the other employees arrived, Tom had set up the small conference room with coffee and a plate of donuts from the shop next door. It wasn't their regular meeting day, and curious glances were exchanged as the staff filed in and took seats around the table. Thanks for coming in a few minutes early, Tom began once everyone was settled. I wanted to talk about what happened yesterday, but more importantly, about how we move forward from it. A murmur went through the room. By now everyone had heard about the famous actor's visit and the circumstances surrounding it. Office gossip traveled faster than electronic transfers. First, let me be clear. This isn't about singling anyone out or assigning blame, Tom continued. Many of us, myself included, could have handled yesterday better. He looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. But what's more important is recognizing that yesterday wasn't just a one-time incident. It was a symptom of a gap in how we approach customer service for everyone who walks through our doors. Patricia, sitting near the front, stared down at her coffee cup. Tom noticed and added gently, Patricia, I want to thank you for how you recovered and provided excellent service once you realized there was an issue. That shows your capacity to adapt and grow." She looked up, surprise and relief in her expression. This wasn't the reprimand she had been expecting. "What I realized yesterday," Tom continued, "is that we've been checking boxes on inclusion without truly understanding what it means in practice. Our training has been, well, inadequate." He took out his phone and pulled up the website Keanu had shown him. "I've been in touch with this organization. They specialize in real-world inclusion training for businesses. They're sending a representative next week to begin a new training program with us." One of the younger tellers raised her hand. "Is this because of what happened with the woman with Down syndrome?" "It was the catalyst," Tom acknowledged. "But this isn't just about customers with visible disabilities. It's about elderly customers who might need more time, people who speak English as a second language, those with hearing impairments who read lips, anyone who might need a different approach than what we consider standard service." The conversation continued, evolving from awkward tension to genuine discussion. Staff members began sharing their own experiences, moments they felt unsure how to help someone, times they might have made assumptions about customers based on appearance or behavior. "The point isn't to make anyone feel guilty," Tom emphasized as the meeting wound down. "The point is to recognize we can do better and then actually do it. Not because a celebrity caught us at our worst, but because every person who walks through those doors deserves our best." As the staff filed out to prepare for opening, Patricia lingered behind. "Tom, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry about yesterday. I didn't realize how I was coming across." Tom nodded. "I know, that's the thing. Most of us don't realize it. We need to learn to see ourselves through others' eyes sometimes." "Did he—" Patricia hesitated. "Did Mr. Reeves say anything about me specifically?" Tom shook his head. "Not at all. In fact, he made it clear he wasn't there to get anyone in trouble. He just wanted to make sure we recognized the larger issue and addressed it." Patricia seemed to relax slightly. "He seems like a genuinely good person, not just a Hollywood act. Some people don't need cameras rolling to do the right thing." Tom replied simply. Meanwhile, across town, Lucy was preparing lunch for her brother's visit. She had tidied her small apartment and was now chopping vegetables for the pasta salad that was Andy's favorite. The kitchen radio played softly in the background, and she hummed along as she worked. A knock at the door announced Andy's arrival. Lucy wiped her hands on a dish towel and hurried to open it, greeting her brother with a warm hug. "Hey, Luce," Andy said, returning the hug before following her inside. "Something smells amazing. Pasta salad and garlic bread," Lucy said proudly. "And I made chocolate chip cookies for dessert." "You're spoiling me," Andy grinned, setting a small potted plant on her counter. He always brought her something when he visited. "So how have you been? How was the big bank day yesterday? Did you get your account set up okay?" Lucy tried to contain her smile but couldn't. "Yes, I got my account. And you're never going to believe what happened." Andy settled onto one of the kitchen chairs, genuinely interested. "Tell me everything." "Well, it didn't start great," Lucy admitted, turning to stir the pasta that was boiling on the stove. "The lady at the bank was treating me like a baby. You know how some people talk really slow and loud like I can't understand normal talking?" Andy frowned slightly. "Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. She made me feel stupid," Lucy continued, her voice quieter now. "She kept asking if I came with someone and saying maybe I should come back another time. Then I dropped all my papers on the floor." Andy's expression darkened. "Lucy, that's not right. You prepared for weeks for that appointment." "I know." I was about to cry. "But then—" Lucy paused, turning to face her brother with barely contained excitement. "Then someone helped me pick up my papers, and it was Keanu Reeves." Andy's jaw literally dropped. "What? No way. The Keanu Reeves? John Wick Keanu Reeves?" "Yes," Lucy exclaimed, clapping her hands together. "He was so nice, Andy. He helped me with my papers and stayed with me while I opened my account. And suddenly everyone at the bank was super helpful and nice." Andy shook his head in disbelief. That's incredible, Luce, but wait, are you absolutely sure it was him? I mean, sometimes people can look similar to—" Lucy held up her hand, cutting him off with a knowing smile. "I have proof." She went to her bedside table and returned with the handwritten note, carefully handing it to her brother. Andy's eyes grew wider as he read it, his hand actually trembling slightly. This is his actual handwriting. He wrote this for me?" Andy looked up, awestruck. "For both of us," Lucy corrected gently. "He was so kind, Andy. Not just because he's famous. He was kind in a real way. He didn't take over or try to do everything for me. He just stood beside me and let me do it myself, but made sure everyone treated me right. Andy read the note again before carefully handing it back to Lucy. That's actually even cooler than all his movies, Luce, that he's a genuinely good person. Lucy nodded, turning back to drain the pasta. It made me think a lot. About how I let people treat me sometimes, how I just accept it when they talk down to me. Andy watched his sister, noting something different in her demeanor, a new confidence in how she held herself. You know what he told me? Lucy continued, mixing the vegetables with the cooled pasta. He said I deserved their respect from the beginning, famous person or not. And he's right. I do deserve respect. You absolutely do, Andy agreed, his voice thick with emotion. You always have. But I need to expect it, Lucy said thoughtfully. Not just hope for it. Yesterday showed me that. As they sat down to enjoy the meal Lucy had prepared, their conversation shifted to other topics. Andy's new job, their parents' upcoming anniversary, the latest movie they both wanted to see. But throughout the meal, the note sat on the counter where Lucy had placed it. A tangible reminder that sometimes the greatest gifts come in unexpected moments from unexpected people. And across town, First City Bank was having an unusually productive morning meeting, with staff members engaged in meaningful conversation about how to better serve all their customers. None of them were aware yet of how significantly their approach would change in the coming weeks, or how a single interaction was already rippling outward, affecting far more lives than just those who had been present the day before. 1 month later, Lucy stood at the entrance of First City Bank, pausing for a moment before pulling open the heavy glass door. The last time she had been here, she'd left with much more than just a bank account. Today was her first return visit, and she couldn't help feeling a flutter of nervous excitement as she stepped inside. The bank looked mostly the same, marble floors still gleaming, the same rope barriers guiding customers into orderly lines, the electronic board flashing numbers. But Lucy immediately noticed some differences. Near the entrance, a new sign displayed in clear, simple language. Need assistance? Please ask any staff member. We're here to help. Beside it was a stand with pamphlets in multiple languages and picture-based guides for common banking tasks. Lucy took a ticket from the dispenser and found a seat in the waiting area. While she waited, she noticed a teller helping an elderly man who was struggling to fill out a form. Instead of rushing him or taking over, the teller was patiently explaining each section, waiting for him to complete it himself. Number 38, called the electronic voice. Lucy checked her ticket. That was her. She gathered her things and approached the counter, where she was surprised to see Patricia, the same teller who had helped her, or initially failed to help her during her last visit. Patricia looked up and recognition flashed across her face. For a moment, both women simply looked at each other, the memory of their last encounter hanging between them. Good morning, Ms. Chen, Patricia said finally, her voice warm and natural. How are you today? I'm good, thank you, Lucy replied, setting her bank book on the counter. I'd like to make a deposit to my savings account, please. Of course, Patricia nodded, taking the bank book. Your account number is right here and you filled out your deposit slip perfectly. Is this from your paycheck from the bakery? Lucy smiled, pleasantly surprised that Patricia had remembered where she worked. Yes, I got a small raise last week. Congratulations, Patricia said, and her smile seemed genuine. That's wonderful news. As Patricia processed the deposit, Lucy glanced around the bank. Things look a little different here. Patricia followed her gaze to the new signage and informational materials. Yes, we've made some changes recently. Actually, she hesitated, then continued with quiet sincerity. I want to apologize for how I treated you during your last visit. It wasn't right, and I'm truly sorry. The direct acknowledgement caught Lucy by surprise. Thank you, she said simply. We've had some new training, Patricia explained as she counted Lucy's cash deposit. It's been really eye-opening, honestly. Made me realize some of the assumptions I was making without even knowing it. Lucy nodded, appreciating the candid conversation. Everyone learns and grows. That's what my mom always says. Your mom sounds wise. Patricia smiled, stamping the deposit slip and handing Lucy her receipt. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Actually, yes, Lucy said, pulling a small notebook from her bag. I'd like to learn how to use the ATM outside. I know you're busy, but maybe someone could show me the first time. I'd be happy to show you myself, Patricia replied. Let me just call someone to cover my window for a few minutes. 10 minutes later, Lucy was successfully completing her first ATM transaction with Patricia standing nearby. Available to answer questions but letting Lucy figure things out independently. It was exactly the right balance of support without taking over. Thank you, Lucy said as she put her card back in her wallet. This will be really helpful for when the bank is closed. You're very welcome, Patricia replied. And please remember, if you ever have questions or need help with anything, you can always ask. That's what we're here for, to help all our customers manage their money successfully. As Lucy left the bank, she felt a sense of satisfaction that went beyond just completing her banking tasks. Something had changed here, not just for her, but potentially for many others who might come through those doors feeling uncertain or different. Meanwhile, across town, Andy was working his shift at the local bookstore cafe when the bell above the door jingled, signaling a new customer. He looked up from the espresso machine he was cleaning and froze in disbelief. Keanu Reeves, wearing his signature casual attire and the same cap he'd worn at the bank, stood at the entrance looking around with interest. Andy's coworker nudged him hard in the ribs. Isn't that? Yes, Andy whispered, his hand suddenly trembling slightly. It is. Taking a deep breath, Andy stepped up to the counter as Keanu approached. Good afternoon, he managed to say with reasonable composure. What can I get for you today? Just a black coffee, please, Keanu replied with a friendly smile. Medium. Coming right up, Andy said, grabbing a cup. As he wrote on it, he hesitated, then gathered his courage. I'm sorry, but I have to say something. You met my sister Lucy at First City Bank about a month ago. You helped her when she dropped her papers and stayed with her while she opened her account. Keanu's expression softened with recognition. Lucy? Yes, I remember her very clearly. How is she doing? She's doing great, Andy said, unable to keep the emotion from his voice. She showed me your note. I just wanted to say thank you. Not just for the note, but for how you treated her. It meant a lot to both of us. Keanu nodded, his eyes warm. Lucy made an impression on me, too. She was very determined and well prepared. I was just sorry she wasn't treated with the respect she deserved from the start. Well, apparently things have changed at that bank, Andy said as he prepared the coffee. She went back yesterday and said everything was different. New signs, better service, even an apology from the same teller who had been rude to her before. That's excellent to hear, Keanu said, genuine pleasure in his voice. That's how change happens sometimes. One small moment, one conversation at a time. Andy handed over the coffee, waving away Keanu's attempt to pay. It's on the house. Small thank you for being kind to my sister. Keanu thanked him and found a quiet table in the corner of the cafe where he took out a script he was reading for a potential new project. The bookstore cafe was one of his favorite spots in the city. Small, quiet, with excellent coffee and staff who respected his privacy. As he sipped his coffee, his phone buzzed with a text. It was from his longtime friend and stunt coordinator, who had helped him train for his action roles. Meeting with the director pushed to 3 p.m., running late. Keanu texted back a simple, no problem. I'm at the bookstore cafe on Main, take your time. With extra time to spare, Keanu browsed the bookshelves, eventually selecting a poetry collection that caught his eye. As he returned to his table, he noticed a flyer on the community bulletin board near the cafe entrance. It featured a photo of a group of adults with various disabilities in chef's hats and aprons, all smiling proudly. The headline read, Community Cooking Class Taught by Extraordinary Chefs. Looking closer, he spotted Lucy in the back row, beaming with confidence. The text explained that the program invited people with disabilities to share their cooking skills by teaching classes to community members. The next class, Artisan Bread Basics, would be taught by Lucy Chen, assistant baker at Sunrise Bakery. Keanu smiled to himself, took out his phone, and snapped a photo of the flyer. After a moment's thought, he sent a message to his assistant. Please sign me up for this cooking class next Saturday. Also, can we make sure Sunrise Bakery is on our catering list for the production office? The response came quickly. Done and done. Any special reason? Keanu replied simply. Supporting local businesses. Their sourdough comes highly recommended. He put his phone away and returned to his script, but his mind kept drifting back to that day at the bank. He'd been recognized as a celebrity dozens of times that month alone. but most people never looked beyond the famous face to see the actual person. Lucy had seen him, really seen him, just as he had seen her. That evening, Tom, the bank manager, stayed late at the office reviewing the results of their first month of enhanced inclusion training. The statistics were encouraging. Customer satisfaction scores had improved across all demographics, and there had been a notable increase in new accounts opened by seniors and people with disabilities. But the numbers told only part of the story. The real change was in the daily interactions he observed on the floor, staff taking extra time with customers who needed it, finding creative ways to explain complicated banking concepts, and most importantly, treating every person who walked through the door with equal respect and dignity. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was the regional manager. "Tom, I've been looking over the numbers from your branch," the voice on the other end said without preamble. "Customer satisfaction up 8%, new accounts increased 12%, even staff retention metrics are looking better. Whatever you're doing there, it's working. The regional office wants to implement your training program across all branches. Can you put together a presentation for the quarterly meeting?" "Absolutely," Tom replied, pride evident in his voice. "But I should be clear, this wasn't my initiative alone. It came about because of a situation that could have gone very badly for the bank. We were fortunate it turned into a learning opportunity instead. Well, however it started, the results speak for themselves," the regional manager said. "I look forward to hearing more details at the meeting." After hanging up, Tom gathered his things to head home, turning off lights as he made his way through the empty bank. He paused at Patricia's window where a small new addition caught his eye, a simple handwritten note taped discreetly to her computer. "See the person first. Everything else comes second." The note wasn't part of any official bank policy or training materials. Patricia had added it herself as a daily reminder. Tom smiled, leaving it exactly where it was as he continued toward the exit. Outside, the city was settling into evening, streetlights flickering on as dusk deepened. In different parts of town, Lucy was showing her brother the bread recipe she would be teaching in her upcoming class. Patricia was telling her husband about her improved relationship with the customers at work. And Keanu was stepping into a production meeting, his earlier coffee with its free-of-charge gesture of gratitude still warming him more than the beverage itself had. None of them could have predicted how a brief encounter at a bank would create such meaningful ripples in their lives. But that's how change often happens, not through grand gestures or viral moments of public recognition, but through simple human connections, one person seeing another clearly, and the quiet courage to do better once we know better. In a world that often feels disconnected and impersonal, sometimes all it takes is one person willing to pause, to kneel down and help gather scattered papers, to remind us all what matters most. Seeing each other's humanity, treating each other with dignity, and standing beside rather than standing over those who might be struggling. And while not everyone would have the chance to be helped by a famous actor during a difficult moment, Lucy's story had begun inspiring others to be that helpful person themselves. A lesson far more valuable than any bank account could hold.